As a kid, I was always fascinated with history. I read about it, I watched documentaries, but now I want to visit and walk the ground of those historic places that I've spent years studying. Join me on my trek, History Adventures. Today on History Adventures, we're going to explore the area around the ravine on Guadalcanal. If you take a Guadalcanal tour, more than likely you will stay in Honiara near Point Cruz. Very close to that area is what is known as the ravine. You should go with your tour group and walk the area for a better understanding of what happened there and the battlefield's significance. Let me give you a little history about the ravine. After the failed attempts by the Marines to push the Japanese back from the Matanacao in late September 1942, the Marines needed a new plan to achieve their objectives. Japanese forces were continuing to reinforce Guadalcanal to make a push to retake Henderson Field. The Marines needed to take action. In early October 1942, a plan was in place. A much larger Marine force would be used, with strong and coordinated artillery and air support, with a reserve force and boat group ready to be deployed if needed. The plan was very similar to the September attack, but a much larger force would cross the Matanacao upstream, while another would attack the Japanese forces at the mouth of the Matanacao. The Marines crossing the stream upriver would occupy the high ridges and clear the Japanese troops from the area. They would then move towards Point Cruz, cutting off the Japanese defenders at the mouth of the Matanacao River. On the morning of October 7, 1942, the plan was put in motion. The Marines moved out from their perimeter. By mid-morning, the Marines had moved towards the mouth of the Matanacao and encountered Japanese troops. These Japanese troops had well-prepared positions with foxholes, machine gun emplacements, and a series of trenches, all of this on the east side of the Matanacao. The Marines were expecting the Japanese to have set up their defenses on the west bank of the Matanacao. The inland group stopped just on the east side of the river and waited until morning to make their crossing. Roughly 150 Japanese troops occupied the defensive pocket on the east side of the Matanacao. This position ran from the mouth of the river and continued inland about 150 yards. This area became a complete slugfest between the Marines and the Japanese defenders. The Marines had encircled the Japanese on the east side of the Matanacao and their only retreat route, the sandbar at the mouth of the river. A counterattack by the Japanese on the west side of the river failed, and during the night of the 8th, the trapped Japanese troops made an all-out attack on the Marines to cross the sandbar at the mouth of the Matanacao. It was brutal hand-to-hand combat that lasted for hours. In the morning, 59 Japanese troops were dead and 12 Marines. The remaining Japanese troops were able to cross the river and return to friendly lines. On the morning of the 9th, the Marines inland continued their offensive. The Whaling Group and the 2nd Battalion 7th Marines moved towards the coastline and Point Cruz. They trapped the Japanese troops on the west side of the Matanacao and began to call in artillery and airstrikes on the trapped troops. Puller's 1st Battalion, 7th Marines moved along a ridge and spotted Japanese troops in a wooded ravine. The Japanese troops were the 2nd Battalion, 4th Infantry. Puller immediately called for artillery fire. The fire was directed to trap the Japanese troops in the ravine. Puller also directed his mortars to fire into the ravine. With both ends of the ravine being shelled by artillery, Japanese troops attempted to climb out, but the steep walls made it almost impossible. Marines began using rifle and machine gun fire to keep the Japanese from attempting to climb out. In Puller's words, the Marines had unleashed a machine of extermination. Japanese reports estimate that they lost 600-plus troops killed in the ravine. On the evening of October 9, 1942, and fearing a large Japanese attack, all Marine units on the west side of the Matanacao were ordered to disengage with Japanese troops and withdraw back to the east side of the Matanacao and the Marine perimeter. The area around the ravine now has substantial development, but you can still get an idea of what it must have been like for both the Marines and the Japanese troops. There are a number of U.S. Marines that are still missing and buried around the ravine and the Matanacow. They need to be found and brought back to the United States of America. Thanks for watching our latest episode on History Adventures. Please comment and like the video if you could, and subscribe to our page. Please share with everyone you know that's a history buff. We'll see you next episode.